In a world saturated with information, genuine knowledge can often feel elusive. We are told that education is the key to a brighter future, but what if the very systems designed to enlighten us are in fact perpetuating a form of subtle manipulation? Noam Chomsky's Chomsky on Miseducation explores how traditional education systems often fall short, serving instead to shape societal norms and maintain power structures. Rather than fostering critical thinking, these systems prioritize obedience and conformity, churning out graduates ill-equipped to question the status quo. Chomsky's work is a call to action, urging us to seek alternative paths towards genuine enlightenment and to become informed, engaged citizens. Chomsky's critique of the education system is not merely an academic exercise, it is a passionate call to action, urging us to dismantle and rebuild a system that has strayed far from its intended purpose. He challenges us to recognize the transformative potential of education, not as a tool for indoctrination, but as a means of empowering individuals to think critically, challenge injustice, and create a more equitable society. Chomsky's analysis delves into the historical roots of the modern education system, tracing its evolution alongside the rise of industrial capitalism. He argues that as societies transitioned from agrarian economies to industrialized ones, the demand for a compliant and disciplined workforce grew. Education, in this context, became less about fostering intellectual curiosity and more about instilling obedience, conformity, and a willingness to accept hierarchical structures. This historical context, Chomsky posits, continues to exert a powerful influence on contemporary education systems. He points to the emphasis on standardized testing, rigid curricula, and the pressure to conform to predetermined learning outcomes as evidence of this enduring legacy. These practices, he argues, prioritize the needs of the market over the intellectual and emotional development of individual students, creating a system that values efficiency and productivity over critical thinking and creativity. Moreover, Chomsky highlights the role of media and political institutions in perpetuating this cycle of miseducation. He argues that these powerful entities often function as gatekeepers of information, shaping public discourse and influencing the narratives that shape our understanding of the world. By controlling the flow of information and promoting particular ideologies, these institutions can effectively limit the scope of public debate and stifle dissent. Chomsky's analysis serves as a stark reminder that education is not immune to the influence of power dynamics and vested interests. It is a contested terrain where different ideologies clash and where the struggle for hearts and minds is constantly being waged. By unveiling the hidden curriculum at work within traditional education systems, Chomsky empowers us to become more critical consumers of information, to question the narratives presented to us, and to seek alternative sources of knowledge. To grasp Chomsky's critique, we must journey back to when mass education began. The Industrial Revolution demanded a disciplined, compliant workforce. Education's purpose shifted to producing obedient workers. Schools mirrored factories, emphasizing rote memorization and obedience. Chomsky argues this industrial influence persists in modern education. Standardized testing and rigid curricula reflect this legacy. Chomsky challenges us to prioritize critical thinking and creativity. Chomsky argues that education is shaped by political ideologies, economic interests, and media. It often serves to reinforce dominant narratives while marginalizing alternative perspectives. This process creates a citizenry ill-equipped to critically analyze information or challenge authority. Chomsky emphasizes the need for critical consumption of information and diverse perspectives for a truly democratic society. Chomsky argues that standardized testing reinforces inequalities and stifles creativity. These tests reduce education to memorization rather than fostering critical thinking. They often favor privileged students and narrow the curriculum. Chomsky advocates for holistic education and authentic assessments. He believes this approach empowers students to become independent thinkers. Chomsky argues that the modern media landscape, saturated with entertainment and superficiality, undermines education. The constant bombardment of fleeting images and sensationalized headlines hinders critical thinking and promotes instant gratification. This spectacle distracts from nuanced realities and critical examination of societal structures. Media's brevity and focus on entertainment shorten attention spans, challenging deep learning. The commercial nature of media prioritizes profit over substance, dumbing down complex issues. Chomsky urges us to be discerning media consumers and seek alternative perspectives. Cultivating media literacy is essential for navigating the modern information landscape. Chomsky critiques educational policy, highlighting political agendas shaping student narratives. Education, he argues, is a battleground of ideologies, controlled by those in power. Textbooks and curricula often reflect dominant power structures, marginalizing alternative views. Chomsky warns of the corporatization of education, prioritizing market needs over critical thinking. He urges us to advocate for diverse perspectives and critical engagement in curricula. A democratic society relies on an educated, questioning citizenry. Chomsky argues that perceived crises in education are often manufactured to advance political and economic agendas. These crises serve as pretexts for privatizing educational services and entrenching inequalities. Public funds are diverted to private institutions, leaving most students behind. This narrative deflects attention from poverty, lack of healthcare, and systemic racism. Chomsky urges us to advocate for increased public education funding and equitable resource allocation. Reclaiming education as a public good is essential for a just society. Chomsky recognizes the transformative potential of technology in education, but cautions against embracing it uncritically. He emphasizes the need for media literacy education, empowering students to critically navigate the digital landscape and discern credible sources from misinformation. Chomsky argues that media literacy must go beyond technical skills, equipping students with critical thinking tools to deconstruct media messages and evaluate credibility. He suggests that encouraging students to become active participants in the digital public sphere can help foster a more informed and engaged citizenry. Chomsky believes in the power of education to foster critical thinking, encourage dissent, and empower students. By questioning assumptions and challenging authority, students can become informed, active participants in society. Education should be a process of empowerment, not indoctrination, fostering a love of learning and lifelong curiosity. Chomsky envisions education as a transformative force for individual and societal change. Chomsky argues that the education system perpetuates social and economic disparities rather than serving as a great equalizer. Access to quality education is uneven, favoring privileged backgrounds and creating a cycle of disadvantage. Disparities in funding and resources reflect societal priorities, perpetuating systemic inequality. Addressing these root causes can create a more just and equitable society. Chomsky argues that miseducation perpetuates inequality and undermines democracy by discouraging critical thinking and suppressing dissent. This leaves societies vulnerable to manipulation and erodes the capacity for social change. A healthy democracy depends on an informed and engaged citizenry. Chomsky challenges us to foster critical thinking and open dialogue. Empowering students to question and analyze information is essential for a just society. Chomsky challenges the widely held belief that education serves as a level playing field, rewarding merit and hard work regardless of background. He argues that the concept of meritocracy, while often touted as a cornerstone of democratic societies, is often used to mask and legitimize existing inequalities. By perpetuating the myth that success is solely determined by individual effort, Chomsky contends, the education system obscures the systemic barriers that prevent many individuals from reaching their full potential, effectively blaming the victims of inequality for their circumstances. He argues that the notion of a meritocratic education system ignores the profound influence of social, economic, and cultural capital on educational outcomes. Students from privileged backgrounds, Chomsky notes, often benefit from access to better schools, experienced tutors, and a network of family and community connections that open doors to opportunities. These advantages, he argues, are often invisible or dismissed as simply the fruits of hard work, obscuring the systemic factors that contribute to disparities in achievement. Furthermore, Chomsky argues that standardized tests, often presented as objective measures of merit, are often culturally biased, favoring students from privileged backgrounds who are more likely to have been exposed to the types of knowledge and cultural references that appear on these exams. This bias, he contends, serves to legitimize existing inequalities, labeling certain students as less intelligent or capable based on their performance on flawed assessments. Chomsky challenges us to move beyond simplistic notions of meritocracy and to recognize the ways in which the education system often reinforces existing power structures. He argues for a more nuanced understanding of the factors that contribute to educational success, one that acknowledges the role of systemic inequality and the need for policies and practices that promote genuine equality of opportunity. Chomsky argues that one of the most insidious effects of miseducation is the creation of intellectual echo chambers, where individuals are primarily exposed to information that confirms their existing biases and where dissenting viewpoints are silenced or marginalized. He contends that this lack of exposure to diverse perspectives hinders critical thinking, stifles intellectual curiosity, and creates a climate of intolerance and polarization. Breaking free from these echo chambers, Chomsky argues, is essential for fostering meaningful dialogue, promoting understanding across difference, and creating a more just and equitable society. He posits that the internet, while holding the potential for connecting individuals with diverse perspectives from around the globe, has also facilitated the creation of online echo chambers, where algorithms and personalized feeds often limit exposure to information that challenges existing beliefs. Chomsky argues that it is essential to be aware of these filter bubbles and to actively seek out information from a variety of sources, particularly those that challenge our own assumptions and biases. Furthermore, Chomsky emphasizes the importance of engaging in respectful dialogue with those who hold different viewpoints, even when those viewpoints are deeply held and passionately expressed. He argues that creating spaces for open and honest conversation, where individuals feel safe to express their perspectives without fear of censorship or reprisal, is essential for bridging divides, promoting understanding, and finding common ground. Chomsky challenges educators to create learning environments that encourage critical thinking, embrace diverse perspectives, and foster a spirit of open inquiry. He argues that by exposing students to a wide range of viewpoints, encouraging them to question assumptions, and teaching them the skills of respectful dialogue, we can help them break free from intellectual echo chambers and become more informed, engaged, and empathetic citizens. Chomsky's vision of education extends beyond the acquisition of knowledge and skills. He sees it as a profoundly moral endeavor, one that should awaken the moral imagination, cultivate empathy, and inspire individuals to work towards a more just and equitable world. He argues that education should not merely prepare students for the existing social order, but should empower them to question injustice, challenge oppressive systems, and become agents of positive change. He posits that true education should nurture a sense of social responsibility, encouraging students to recognize their interconnectedness with others and to understand how their actions impact the world around them. Chomsky argues that by exposing students to the realities of injustice both locally and globally, we can cultivate their empathy and inspire them to act as allies and advocates for those who are marginalized and oppressed. Furthermore, Chomsky emphasizes the importance of empowering students to become active participants in shaping a more just and equitable world. He encourages educators to create opportunities for students to engage in service learning, community organizing, and advocacy work, allowing them to apply their knowledge and skills to real-world issues and to experience the transformative power of collective action. Chomsky's vision of education is not one of passive acceptance, but of active hope, a belief in the power of individuals to create a better future. He challenges us to view education as a force for social transformation, one that empowers individuals to recognize injustice, to challenge oppressive systems, and to create a more equitable and humane world for all. Chomsky's critique of miseducation is a call to action for a liberatory model of education. He envisions nurturing critical thinking, creativity, and active citizenship. This requires a shift from traditional paradigms to a student-centered approach. Moving away from standardization, Chomsky advocates for vibrant spaces of intellectual exploration. He emphasizes collaboration, critical thinking, and democratic learning environments. Chomsky's vision extends beyond classrooms, advocating for societal transformation, valuing critical inquiry and social justice. At the heart of Chomsky's educational philosophy lies a profound belief in the power of critical thinking. He argues that the ability to question assumptions, analyze information, and form independent judgments is not merely a set of skills to be acquired in the classroom, but an essential human capacity, one that must be nurtured throughout life. In an era of information overload, propaganda, and rapidly evolving technologies, Chomsky contends that critical thinking is not merely desirable but essential for navigating the complexities of the modern world and for safeguarding the values of a democratic society. Chomsky challenges us to embrace the discomfort of uncertainty, to resist the allure of simplistic answers and prepackaged ideologies. He argues that true critical thinking requires a willingness to confront our own biases, to consider alternative perspectives, and to remain open to the possibility that our existing beliefs may be flawed or incomplete. This process of intellectual humility, Chomsky suggests, is not a sign of weakness, but a testament to the strength of a mind that is constantly evolving, adapting, and seeking deeper understanding. Furthermore, Chomsky emphasizes that critical thinking is not merely an intellectual exercise, but a deeply ethical one. He argues that the ability to think critically is inextricably linked to the capacity for moral reasoning, for recognizing injustice, and for imagining alternative futures. By encouraging students to question the status quo, to challenge oppressive systems, and to envision a more just and equitable world, Chomsky believes that education can become a powerful force for social transformation. Chomsky's emphasis on critical thinking is a call to action, an invitation to embrace a lifelong pursuit of knowledge, understanding, and social justice. He reminds us that the journey of learning is never complete, that there is always more to learn, more to question, and more to discover. Chomsky's critique of miseducation is ultimately a testament to his unwavering belief in the transformative power of education. He argues that education, when stripped of its ideological baggage and its instrumentalist goals, has the potential to empower individuals, to foster critical thinking, to promote social justice, and to create a more humane and equitable world. This vision of education as a force for liberation and empowerment stands in stark contrast to the often narrow view of education as a means to economic advancement or social control. Chomsky challenges us to reclaim education as a public good, a fundamental human right and a cornerstone of a thriving democracy. He argues that access to quality education should not be a privilege reserved for the few, but a right afforded to all, regardless of background, socio-economic status, or zip code. He contends that by investing in public education, we are not merely investing in the future of our children, but in the very fabric of our society, creating a more informed, engaged, and just citizenry. Furthermore, Chomsky emphasizes that the true value of education extends far beyond its economic benefits. He argues that education should not be reduced to a mere credentialing system designed to prepare students for the demands of the job market. While acknowledging the importance of vocational training, Chomsky contends that a truly holistic education must also nurture critical thinking, creativity, empathy, and a sense of social responsibility. Chomsky's vision of education is one that empowers individuals to become active and engaged citizens, capable of shaping their own destinies and contributing to the betterment of society. He reminds us that education is not a passive process of absorbing information, but an active and transformative journey of self-discovery, critical inquiry, and social action. Chomsky's critique of miseducation is a call to action. He argues that education free from ideological constraints can transform society, challenge oppression, and build a just future. Education should be a tool for dismantling injustice and creating equity. Chomsky urges us to connect education to real-world issues and inspire change. Education should empower individuals to challenge the status quo and build a better world.